that now beats me. If you don't know what that is, and my God, what a situation. The whole of Northern Europe is basically functioning because of district heating. That is one boiler or power system, many pipes of hot water. That is what's made these Nordic countries, a third of whose territory sits in the Arctic, that's what's made them habitable. It's the reason no old people die of hypothermia. They do here. And it's efficient. If you want to change your system to something more green, there's one change. How many changes in this room to reach you? You're all going to have to pay more for individual systems. This is a curse of Thatcherism, the belief that heating, something as prime as that, should be left to an individual when the whole of Northern Europe delivers it as a collective good. Now, how much of a spring in your step do you think you would have if every town in Scotland had one street at least to start off with, converted to district heating with a great big slogan, collective heating brought to you by the Scottish government? And actually, the Scottish government has 100% control of heating. Not energy, but heating. So come on. Norway. Well, there's another big important point about land, because actually that very democratic parliament arose from a constitution which gave the vote to every man, because it was those kind of days, who owned land in 1814. And so many men owned land in Norway, because that's normal. We're not. They're normal. That 42% of guys got the vote overnight in 1814. That transformed their society, because their parliament was always ultra-democratic. The same line applied in the Reform Act of 1832 in Britain, which gave the vote to all men over 25 who owned land, and 5% got the vote. And in Scotland, 2.8%. 42%, 3%. That's the difference that happened, because the ability to vote was always related to the ownership of land. So that's the head start the Norwegians have had on us. And because of that really grounded democracy, they've been able to do a lot of things we haven't, particularly advanced hydro energy. That hydropower, everybody ogles the oil fund, but the Norwegians don't use their oil. It's a hydroelectric country. It's hydro that revolutionized them. And once again, hydropower is owned by local councils. It's not owned by the state. They export oil, and right now, with the oil crisis we've got again, they're laughing, because they're exporting oil to suckers like us who didn't get going on the resorts we've got. And that was because we couldn't. So, you know, that all lies ahead of us. But if we're not going to think we're aiming for something like this, I don't know why we would think we want to be independent. We've got to. This is the kind of change we need to have. Denmark. Cooperation. Everybody says, yeah, it's good to be cooperative. And actually, the Scots have got a bit of a, you know, I would say a bit of a natural tilt that way. In fact, since we're standing in Alistair Gray's building, he wrote a fantastic book, Why the Scots Should Rule Scotland, in 1997. It's a tiny wee thin thing, actually. And his main thinking was that the Scots have had to become cooperative because our land is crap. Particularly in Highland areas, we had to work together. His thesis then is that many parts of England where the land is not crap basically became very defensive because they had a different experience. And that's the book. It's a really interesting one. But this question of cooperation, it doesn't just come out of the ether, you build it. So the amazing thing that the Danes do is they have a system at the age of 15 where 15-year-olds, most of them, get to go away from school, from home for a year. They study with other 15-year-olds, they live with them, they cook with them, they take care of one another, and they study something extra that they really love. So the one that's in the Denmark film is on an island called Samso, and it's a diving school. Can you imagine being sent away from home at the age of 15 to spend a year learning to dive? And everything else as well. everyone we interviewed in that film said it's the single most important thing about Denmark, because the kids come back as responsible adults pretty much, but they've had fun. And so everything about cooperation is encouraging people. You have to get the structures in that encourage people to feel cooperative and grounded. There's an awful lot in Scotland where we were telt. We were all telt. And so we assume that that kind of directive will just tell you what to do and you'll do it. Nah. Smart countries, the Finns as well, they encourage. And they also, just by the by, make sure kids don't go to school till they're 6 and 7. The only reason we're doing 4 and 5 is because we had the first factory acts in the world, practically. We put women into factories and we needed somewhere to put the kids. That's why 4 and 5 are particular to Britain. 82% of the countries in the world send kids to school at 6 and 7. That's the right age. We can be moving towards that too, although we need the funding of independence to make it work properly. But again, it's a reason to want independence because we need to make that change. These guys come back pretty transformed, and you can see it in the society because the levels of what they can do together and how easily they cooperate go all the way through to that government I spoke about earlier. Finally, I think probably, Estonia. And this is a question again about building trust, because this trust is so important. That is the Baltic chain from 1989, when there was millions of people stood side by side to express a desire for independence around the time of the fall of the Berlin Wall. And because of the trust levels that there are in all the Nordic countries, including the Estonians, who are all pretty much sort of semi-Nordic, semi-Slavic, but they have an ID card. Now, I can see a lot of, people will go, I don't think so. And in Britain, we're very much, I don't think so. And Labour has just had to withdraw its idea of an ID card because we don't trust them. And this is what happens in a country without trust. You can't modernise. And I've got to say, having watched what they do in Estonia, it's mind-blowing. You don't need other cards apart from that card. They have systems that absolutely protect your identity and your data. And for example, any of you have spent time filling in your self-assessment for your tax? Anybody do that in the room? Yep. Right, it takes 1 minute. Because the data's already there. Who's applied for stuff here on the state where you've had to pile in the information they've already got? Well, you don't. It takes a minute. And they've already figured that just one digital application, which is being able to sign documents online, has saved them 2% of their GDP. If you don't want to do that, rock on. But what you need to be able to have a country that makes that kind of change is trust. And the Estonians have that because they walked the difficult path to independence as recently in 1991 together. They made very bold decisions about going digital because they had nothing else going for them. One of their returning exiles came from the States and suggested that the internet was a thing to look at. Now, because all their leaders, since the communist era had been swept away, their leaders were all under 30. Their bankers were teenagers, seriously. And given the youth of that cabinet, they were able to embrace something that I'm afraid to say our age group might not have done. They took a risk. They bought state-of-the-art computers with the little money they had, and they put them in primary schools, not executive offices, not head bummers. And so they grew the first generation of digital entrepreneurs. So Skype, may it rest in peace, Skype was actually the product of 3 Estonian engineers who as children were the first to get computers after Estonian independence. It's worth thinking about all these things. We need to be open to what's running when we become independent and not stick rigidly to what's been. And that is this question of trust. When you look there, you can see the best, the countries that trust most, then again, are blue. And there's the Finns in dark blue. They're right at the top of the heap. And there's us, yellow, not doing very well at all. And that's something we need to build. So the thing about it is, it'll be hard for you to see that. So much of Scotland is going the right way. You know, we've put the energy in when it comes to land buyouts, and that's been a really brave thing for people to do, actually, because it's done without much support. We have incredible numbers of development trusts that run assets around Scotland, and they're demonstrating to themselves and their communities that they can do that. There's hardly been a problem with one where there are problems with private companies. But the big thing I think that we need to think about is what community means. Here, it means volunteers. It very often means burnt-out volunteers who are struggling on, trying not to say they're burnt out because they don't want to let the side down. Everywhere else, a community means a municipality with structure, with voting, with power right down at that lowest level. Particularly Norway, look at that. That's the number of councils they have. In fact, they've got a few more now, 357, so that every community has got that practice of running itself. And we don't. Now, we do have the development trust movement, and it's amazing. I can't get all the names of development trusts. I mean, that's just A to, D. There's huge numbers of people. And I do wonder for the politicians what it takes to watch all these development trusts set up where there's not a paid director in it. And they all willingly take up that, learn things no one expected to learn, take responsibility no one should be expected to do. And look, that's just A to D of it. And yet we still wonder whether we're capable and we won't make these structural changes. And then the final points, okay, this is the round ball. But that moment in the Euros with the umbrella man, or the brolly man as he was known, it's a lovely demonstration of something that is really unique about Scotland and in which the Nordics don't hold a candle to us, actually. And that is just that willingness to reach out to people. I mean, that's the guy who just was wandering around in the rain, put his brolly up over the wee shell-pit manny that was shuffling along with his Zimmer, and that became an absolute icon of those tournaments. It was taken up and put on an advert on all the German underground because those guys were so impressed with just that spontaneous gesture of generosity. It happened in Kenmure Street, which was a really powerful moment for Scotland, where neighbours decided they weren't letting two guys get lifted by the Home Office because they were neighbours. And the guy who dived beneath the van man, what a guy. If we had a Scottish honours system, he should be given one. In fact, why haven't we got a Scottish honours system? Do it. But that film, see it when it comes out, everybody to Kenmure Street. It's a great gesture, again, of reaching out. But Jock Tamson's bairns, and in the referendum, the independence referendum, the criteria was if you were living here for 3 months, you're in. The criteria for Brexit was ethnic. It was Commonwealth, Irish, British citizens. You could have lived here your entire life from another country. You didn't get a say. So we should be proud of that because we did that without even thinking about it. We embraced, if you like, the newcomer. That's a strong, strong thing that other countries don't do. And of course, we're not doing too badly with music, are we? In cultural terms, we are so strong. And I just wanted to finish on this, which this is just it looks like an average bookcase. It's actually a bookcase of a woman who asked me to go and speak in Iceland. And when I was using her office, again with the window open because it was so hot, I looked at her bookcase and it was full of Scottish literature. And when I said to her, wow, you've got a hell of a bookcase there, she said, yeah, I did my degree in Glasgow in Scottish literature. I said, really? Okay. And I said, why did you do that? She said, why wouldn't I? You've got one of the best literatures in the world. And that's on the back of her door. So, let's do it. Thank you.
Well, that's got us off to a good start, hasn't it? Thank you, Leslie, for an excellent talk and a challenge to be what we can be. And now it's time for you lot to be what you can be, which is a thoughtful group of people, because it's time for the World Cafe to begin. And the World Cafe is a difficult thing to organise. I know nothing about it. But fortunately, John Proctor and Kathy Gunn do. So they're on their way up, eventually, to tell you all about it. And then they'll put you to work.
Hello guys, how are we doing? So, World Cafe. First of all, I'm John Proctor from IFS and also Energy Scotland. And you know, we had our events. This is now the 4th convention we've had. And at the previous convention we had, which was in Glasgow, the topics were very much about how we get to independence. But it became a wee bit kind of top-down, as it were. There's an awful lot of discussion from the platform down to the floor. So we thought we should really need to get back to the participation, because we want to talk about the what of independence and why. And so we're going to have the World Cafe. So the World Cafe is a well-practiced format used various places, but because of the nature of it and time available, we say it's World Cafe meets speed dating. Right? When I look at the room here, I kind of envisaged this was actually a bigger room, but we're trying to cram 130 people into a space probably designed for 100. But we'll manage, we'll see how we do on it. But we have 3 interrelated topics. We have energy, the economy, and Europe. And so we've got facilitators at each of your tables, hopefully nested in amongst the group, and Kathy will maybe introduce them briefly. But what the plan, guys, is we're going to do 30 minutes at your first table, and then we're going to move you around, and we're kind of broadly keeping it in a clockwise concept, but they're all in a row. So I'll just quickly take, table 1 is energy, table 2 is the economy, table 3 is Europe, 4 energy, 5 economy, 6 Europe, 7 energy, 8 economy, 9 Europe. Right, as I say, there's facilitators for each of those. And we're going to have you move around after every 30 minutes. Encourage you guys to try and, conscious of this dynamics in the room, maybe not shout at each other. So that would be helpful if you can do that. And if your table feels a wee bit too tight, move around. You're going to get a chance to cover all the topics. If you don't feel particularly familiar with one of the topics or the other ones, don't worry about it. There's going to be plenty of people there. You might learn something. So, Kathy, I don't know if you want to do anything but by way of an introduction.
Hi, this is not really about us talking. This is about you talking. I'm Kathy Gunn. I kind of on the fringes of a few independent supporting organisations, which is what ended me up here today. We represent various organisations. Independence Forum Scotland and Yes United are the 2 organising the hosts of today. And we also have among our facilitators representatives of Scottish Currency Group. We did have the Independence podcasters, and we did have Scotonomics, but some people have had to pull out at the last minute, some with warning, some with not. So yes, our idea is that normally at these events, the kind of format is that there are speakers on the stage and there are people listening. And it always bugs me because I know that the people out there have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge that they're more than willing to share. So this is an opportunity to do that. I say we picked the 3 topics because they're topical. And everybody will have an interest and a slant on them. So please be kind to your facilitators. The idea is that you have big bits of paper, pens on the table. The World Cafe, I'm not sure if this is why it's called that or not, but it's so, you can sketch your big plan on a serviette on the table and take it away and implement it. So please feel free. I hope you've all got pens on the table. Yeah, there's a few there. The facilitators will be summarising the discussions and feeding back in the afternoon. So what we want is to know what you think, what you want to happen, and how you want it to happen. So yeah, that's all I have to say, really. If the facilitators can take their places. Ian, if you could come up to table 8, Simon's going to join you there. It's a last-minute substitution. And yeah, as John says, we'll call time at 25 minutes, and please try and move around in your layers so you get a chance to talk to each topic.
So have some fun, guys. It is a cafe. It's a very congested cafe, but keep in mind it's a bit of fun, and we'll try to get some energy going here. So have at it.
Hi guys, I don't like to disturb such good conversation, but in 5 minutes we're going to ask you to switch tables and switch topics. So can you just please, facilitators, wrap up the discussion in the next 5 minutes? And we'll give you the nod when it's time to move. Thanks. Okay, I see some people moving already. If we can ask you now, this is going to be a bit of a logistical nightmare because we thought the room was a bit more spacious than this. Psst, can we be quiet, please? Thank you. Okay, so people from the tables on this side will move into the tables in the middle. Just stay in your rows, front, middle, and back. And the people at this end get to walk either round this way or round that way to go to the tables over here. Think we can manage that?
Okay, guys, 5-minute warning before we move again. 5 more minutes. Maybe focus on using your yellow stickies and put wee statements if you want. But 5 more minutes. Okay, 90 seconds, guys, 90 seconds. So comrades, we've been asked why the facilitator's not moving. There's a simple answer. It's a cafe. Get up and get a wee bit of exercise and have a bit of fun. On you go, guys, now.